Hello, everybody. I'm Amy Lay. I'm the artistic director of Fourth Wall Music, Windsor's chamber music series that aims to take down the wall between audience and performer with concerts that are interactive, educational, and collaborative. And this is our final concert of our 2021-2022 season. We started off the season exploring the similarities between video game music and classical music, with music at play. We invited 5 local saxophone players and a poet to enjoy jazz, classical, improv, and electronics in our saxophone concert. We delved into the healing power of music, and we thought about our ties with nature at our Birdsong Inside Us concert, and then most recently we presented a full program of woodwind quintets composed by women composers on our Cornerstone concert. But here we are at our Dark Sky Music program, which I'm super excited to share with you today. So perhaps you have a similar memory, but I remember being a kid at the end of a dock, looking up at this dark sky and just being floored at how many stars are up there. And still to this day, you try to reconcile what you know from science tells you about distance and time and our everyday experience of these things. So often our lives feel so important and so big, and sometimes we feel so isolated, but by looking up at the sky, our mind is opened to the possibilities of so much more. And it's that same kind of feeling that I get when I listen to great music. So today we have our knowledge of the stars and the wonder of the dark sky paired right up against some fantastic music inspired by the night. So to bring you the program today, our lineup of musicians includes Andrew Wu on violin, Andrew McIntosh on cello, Lisa Raschiatore clarinet, Patrick Fitzgibbons on the vibraphone, and myself on harp. And I'm also excited to have a guest speaker from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, Jessie Passa. And she is here actually standing in for Nancy Eng, who unfortunately yesterday got COVID. But we are grateful to Nancy for putting together the slides and the information for you today. So we will be announcing the program from the stage, but you can also look at our website, Fourth Wall Music, for details about the program, as well as bios of the artists. You can also go to our website to make a donation and to see a full list of our donors. And I want to say a special thanks to those without whom we could not be here today. The Ontario Trillium Foundation, the Ontario Arts Council, the City of Windsor, the Morris and Beverly Baker Foundation, Alexis Everett Wells, and Asante Wealth Management, and to the Windsor Symphony Orchestra for hosting us at this beautiful Capitol Theater. So we're going to be starting the program today with a piece of music from the opera Rusalka, which was written in 1901 by Antonin Dvorak, a composer who embraced not only the classical, but the folk music of his country. And the song is called Song of the Moon. It tells the story of a young water sprite who is professing her love to the moon, her unfortunate and passionate love for a human, which becomes somewhat problematic. Hope you enjoy.
When I'm listening to this beautiful music, it seems as though time stands still. The worries of the day just fall away. It's really relaxing and energizing at the same time. In that way, it's also very similar to the feeling I have when sitting out under a dark sky. It's quite peaceful, and yet the view is exhilarating. The movement of Earth through space can be detected in the motion of the stars. The stars rise in the east, then they drift across the sky to set in the west. We're seeing the stars move, but it's actually us that's moving. We know the Earth is rotating on its axis from west to east once each day. This 360-degree spin, divided by the 24 hours in a day, tells us stars must be moving 15 degrees each hour. To get a better feel for this distance, we know the moon occupies half of a degree in the sky. There is also another slower motion at work which changes our view of the sky. Let's say you like to go out at the same time each night to look at the stars, maybe at 10 p.m. You know just where to look to see your favorite constellation or maybe a certain bright star. After a few nights, you notice this star is not in the same location. It's moved farther to the west. Something seems to have caused the entire celestial sphere to shift, and that is because Earth is orbiting 360 degrees around the sun every 365 days. And this results in the Earth traveling almost exactly 1 degree further each day along its path. This is good news for stargazers. The ever-changing view into space because of Earth's trip around the sun rewards us with new constellations to enjoy each season. For example, in the spring, here in the Northern Hemisphere, we can watch the constellation of Leo the Lion roaming across the sky. During the summer nights, the constellations of Sagittarius and Scorpius can be found quite low in the southeast. This is also the best time of year to see one of the arms of our Milky Way galaxy stretching out across the sky. In autumn, the constellation Pegasus takes center stage. In Greek mythology, Pegasus is a horse with wings and perhaps magical powers. During the winter months, it's the constellation of Orion that gets our attention. One familiar sight are the 3 bright stars which are angled along his belt. Always found near to Orion is his faithful hunting dog, a much smaller constellation known as Canis Major. His name is Latin for greater dog. If you look at a star map of this constellation, the lines that are connecting the stars really do look like the outline of a dog. These charts also show a bright star that seems to be hanging from the dog's collar. This is the star Sirius. Because of its location, it's also referred to as the dog star. Sirius is the brightest star in the visible universe, and it's considered quite close to us at 8.7 light years away. When you hear of a star is the brightest star in the sky, or the 10th brightest star, what they're referring to is the star's visual magnitude. This is how bright the star appears when we're looking at it from Earth. Sirius has an advantage because it's so close to us. There are many more brighter stars out there, but they are also a lot farther away. Therefore, they'll appear much dimmer. But no matter the distance, we'll always be captivated by the stars in a dark sky.
So, thinkers for ages have found this correlation between music and the stars. They used to talk about the music of the spheres, which was this inaudible sound that planets would make that somehow we would be affected by. And so in the next piece that you're going to hear, which is the third movement from the Duo Number 2 by Ludwig van Beethoven, written in 1792, you are going to feel this pulse, this unheard, inaudible beat that we always feel that underlies the melody of a piece. And followed by the Beethoven, we're performing a piece called Syzygy by Grigory Smirnov. Syzygy is a fantastic word, it's super fun to say, and it's a really interesting concept, which means the aligning of the planets. Grigory says, there are repeating patterns out of which the melody is being born in this piece for a short time. When the spinning planets align, there is some sort of a planetary melody, a melodic line. It is similar in the life of human beings. Every human being has a unique destiny, like a planet, and sometimes our life paths cross for a period of time. Then this relationship forms a similar melody, a melody of destinies. Enjoy the next two pieces.
number of constellations recognized in the sky right now is 88. This hasn't always been the case, so they are often referred to as the modern 88. Most of the constellations we can see from the northern hemisphere have Greek and Roman figures and mythology attached to them. In the southern hemisphere, however, you can find constellations named for exotic birds like the toucan, the peacock, or the phoenix. There are also constellations in the south that represent scientific equipment like the telescope, compass, or reticule. Way back in 150 AD, there were only 48 recognized constellations. These are all still with us today. The constellations of the zodiac were also among these first 48. This Farnese statue from the same era contains at least 42 of these constellations. How and who created them is still up for debate. However, 1,400 years later, it was well documented when new constellations started to be added to the sky. During the 16th and 17th centuries, Dutch and Polish explorers created and placed their own stories in the stars. However, the southern sky was pretty much still unexplored. Then, in 1773, Nicolas Lacaille, a French astronomer, spent over a year at the tip of Africa. Here, he cataloged 10,000 stars. He then filled the open spaces available in the sky by introducing his own 14 constellations. When we watch the constellations, they also seem to rise from the east and set in the west. However, maybe you've noticed there are a group of stars which don't rise or set along any horizon. These are known as circumpolar stars. You've probably seen them in images like this called star trails. Photographers use long camera exposures to lengthen the bright paths of the stars to form beautiful circles in the sky. From our location along the 42nd parallel, there are 6 constellations which constantly revolve around the North Star. This star is called Polaris. It's the 47th brightest star in the sky, and it can be found around 433 light years directly above us. Well, it isn't directly above us. It's above the North Pole, which is more over there. It's located over there because the Earth's axis is tilted by 23.4 degrees from its plane of orbit. Let's imagine Polaris is high above me or you, and everyone else are stars in the night sky. As we turn, it seems to us that everyone else is moving. However, the North Star remains stationary above us, and only the stars which are nearby continue to circle. One of the constellations that never sets is Ursa Major, also known as the Great Bear. Even from the city, we can see the bright stars which form the Big Dipper in this constellation. In star charts, which have lines connecting the stars, you can see there are fainter stars in Ursa Major. Some of them are outlining the bear's head and long legs. The Big Dipper is actually his rear and his tail. Many of us are familiar with these constellations in the Northern Hemisphere. However, at different times in history and in different locations, the sky held other stories. 2,000 years ago, the ancient Chinese astronomers were busy mapping the stars. When they looked up, they didn't see the Big Dipper. They saw an object familiar to them and named it the Emperor's Chariot. If you're in Australia, you might hear people talking about the Great Canoe paddling through the stars. They've used the brightest stars in the Orion constellation and connected them to form a canoe. The 3 belt stars are seen as 3 young boys fishing from the canoe. Many other stars in the Aboriginal Australian sky tell stories which reinforce their unique cultural traditions. Closer to home, the Ojibwe, a First Nations people, have preserved their stories in the sky as well. They recognize a loon where we see the Little Dipper. There has always been a dark, star-filled sky over us all. This great dome is definitely large enough to carry our hopes, create our dreams, and inspire our music.
Just a quick introduction to the next 3 pieces on the program. First, we'll have the beautiful second movement of the trio for harp, violin, and cello by the French composer Jaques Ibert. It's kind kind of starts off with this hypnotic lullaby kind of feel with a repetitive rhythm in the harp. And then you'll hear how it builds in intensity and three voices come together, just kind of searching for a place of rest. And gradually things wind down off to sleep, if you might think. This will be followed by Stardust by Hoagie Carmichael for solo vibraphone. Very cool. A piece of music that embodies how many pieces of music, of songs, of poems have talked about the stars and love. There's a refrain in the song that goes through, "Though I dream in vain, my heart will remain my stardust melody." And then after that, a very out-of-the-box piece. It's for harp and percussion, and I'm playing all of it. Written by a Canadian composer, Armory Schaffer. It's part of his larger work, Crown of Ariadne, and this is called The Song of the Night Insects, because I figured, what is an evening of stargazing without a few bugs? So.
The absolutely unfathomable size of the universe makes it very difficult to understand how far away everything is out there. The speed that light travels through space is often used to measure these distances. Light travels at 300,000 kilometers per second. At that speed, you would cover a little over 9 trillion kilometers in 1 year. Let's try to make these numbers a little easier to understand. First, we'll need to borrow a spaceship from Star Trek because it travels at light speed. In 1 second at this speed, you could orbit the Earth over 7.5 times. You could also travel to the moon and back in less than 3 seconds. Now, let's take a trip to our own personal star, the Sun. The Sun is 150 million kilometers away, so at light speed, we would arrive in a little over 8 minutes. Perhaps you want to sail past Mars and Jupiter and go straight to Saturn. The trip to get a close-up view of the glowing rings will be 1 hour and 18 minutes. Next, we're going to travel through interstellar space to visit our closest star, Proxima Centauri. It's only visible from the southern hemisphere. Proxima is much smaller and dimmer than our sun, so you would need a telescope to see it. To reach this star and watch its 3 known exoplanets orbiting around it, our trip will last 4.2 light years. Any star closer than 10 light years away is considered extremely close for our neighboring star. So, how far away are those stars that we can see? From our perspective, and without the use of a telescope or binoculars, we can only see around 2,500 stars. That would be away from the city on a clear sky and with no moon. This number is roughly the same number of stars that you can see from the south. And their distances? Most of the stars that we can see are less than 1,000 light years away. When we're out with our telescopes, we have a handy way of measuring distances. We're not measuring how far away objects are. We're usually trying to tell how high something is above the horizon or how far apart 2 objects are. This isn't extremely accurate, but it is very useful. This is known as the size or angular separation. For example, when you stretch out your arm and you raise your first finger, you are able to cover about 1 degree in the sky. To understand this more, the moon is half of a degree. So with 1 finger, you could block out 2 moons if they were side by side. You can try this out when the moon is really high in the sky or very low. It's always the same size. The moon does seem to look much larger to us when it's closer to the horizon or rising above some buildings. Here we're comparing it to objects that we know the size of. This is known as the moon illusion. If you look at the sun with some solar glasses, you'll find it also occupies the same half of the degree the moon does. Now, if you raise 3 fingers, you would be measuring 5 degrees. Your fist is around 10 degrees. When you tilt your fist on its side, it's very convenient for telling how high a planet or a star is above the horizon. And finally, your outstretched hand is about 25 degrees. So let's get back to our final spaceship flight. This time, we're going to head into intergalactic space. Our destination is our closest large spiral galaxy, the Andromeda Galaxy. And we aren't going to make it. The light from the galaxy has traveled 2.5 million years to reach us. However, there is a consolation. We can see Andromeda. This galaxy is the farthest object that we can see with the naked eye. It's really quite magical to be in a really dark sky and catch a glimpse of the faint white smudge that is Andromeda. We've just been exploring a very tiny portion of our much larger home in the universe. We might have passed by powerful solar winds, glowing nebula, or black holes. This image from the James Webb Space Telescope is already providing us with new information and powerful images from our infinite universe. The fourth wall played a song today called Syzygy. In astronomy, this word refers to the alignment of 3 or more celestial objects. For example, during solar eclipses when the Earth, Moon, and the Sun are aligned. Syzygy can also be traced back to its Greek origin. Here, it means together with or yoked together. We are together, with each other, with the stars, and with everything else out there. We're in it, we're a part of it, and will always be wondering and wandering through it.
So for our last three pieces, we're going to play a piece by Italian opera composer, the Nocturne by Francisco Bellini. Many composers write nocturnes, which is basically a short, dreamy composition inspired by the night. We have nocturnes by Chopin, Debussy, Mendelssohn, Rachmaninoff, it goes on and on. So today's Bellini. He was known as the Swan because of his long, elegant melodies. After that, we're going to bring it up to the present day with a piece by the well-known pop group Coldplay, Sky Full of Stars, who actually recently named their newest album Music of the Spheres, which is what we've been talking about today. And we'll be finishing it off with Clair de Lune, which I think you'll recognize, means moonlight in French. And it's a transcription of Debussy, the famous Impressionist composer's work for the piano. Thank you guys so much for coming. I really hope you enjoyed the program and hope to see you back for future Fourth Wall concerts. Thanks. Thank you.